Happy Saturday, guys. Really quick, before we go ahead and get started, let me know if we're dropping frames at the moment or if you guys can see me clearly. Put a 1 in the chat if you guys can hear me clearly. Guys, we are absolutely hustling right now. We have the developer team is working 20-hour days. Our closer team is working nonstop, getting all these deals closed. You guys should be getting a ton of notifications. We're nearing closing a shit load of the deals that you guys have submitted, which is very exciting here, especially as we started to dial in the leads that you guys have submitted. I know that we were working over some hurdles in the beginning, making sure that you guys were submitting the correct appointments, but now it seems that we've got it dialed. A lot of the appointments that you guys are actually submitting are good quality, and we're working near deals finally on almost all of them. So very, very exciting stuff. But if you guys can hear me clearly and see me clearly without it buffering, put a 1 in the chat. I would love to know if you guys are able to see this clearly here. But we're going to go ahead and just keep going. We'll get started with today. I have quite a history lesson for you guys today. So, jumping right into it. Every single empire that ever existed, Rome, the Ottomans, the British, America, they all had the same two types of people. The ones who built the wealth that lasted generations, the dynasty, the names that you still recognize a few thousand years later, and then the ones that worked until they died with nothing and created no legacy whatsoever. The ones with no name, no trace that they ever existed. And the main difference between them was never talent. It was never education. It was never luck. It was just one thing. And it's the one thing that nobody seems to teach anywhere that we look. And we keep looking for this one solution. So here's what they told us. Here's what they told me. Go to school, get good grades, get a degree, get a job. That's the next step in this equation. That's what they told us. You work hard, you save money. That's the program. That's the single script that they gave every single one of us constantly. And here's what they told us. They kept telling us to go work hard, save money, retire at 65 years old. That was the script. That was the program here. And if you're being honest with yourself right now, like viscerally honest, like that it doesn't work. You've watched it not work constantly. You've watched your parents follow that script, and the system that was ultimately supposed to protect us, it was never designed to make us wealthy. It was designed to make us useful. There's a massive difference in that. The modern education system, the one that we both went through, it was designed in the 1800s. It was modeled after the Prussian education system. You know what the Prussian education system was built to produce? Factory workers, not entrepreneurs, not thinkers, not builders, factory workers, obedient, punctual, compliant laborers who could follow instructions, sit in rows, raise their hands to speak, and move when the bell rang. The bell rings, you go to first period. Bell rings, you eat lunch. You know what else operates like that, guys? Factories, prisons. Nobody sat down and taught you guys and taught me how to make actual money moves. Because if they did, we would stop showing up to the factory. See, I remember when this exact moment broke open for me. It was 22, and I thought that I had the answer, and I just couldn't shake it. I couldn't make it work. If I was working hard, if that was really how to build the wealth, then I started to think, why aren't the hardest working people the richest people? The construction workers, the nurses working double shifts, single moms with 3 jobs, farmers, the ones that are up at 4 a.m., 7 days a week. These are the hardest working people on the planet, and they're not wealthy. Most of them are barely surviving. Meanwhile, you've gotten people who have never broken a fucking sweat in their life worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So either working hard isn't the variable, or we've been measuring the thing wrong entirely all along. Now, here's the spoiler. It's actually both. And so I became obsessed with this, not with money, but the pattern behind the money. I started studying economics from when I was 14 years old, how wealth was actually created, transferred, and concentrated across civilizations. And I found something that fundamentally rewired my brain forever. The same pattern over and over and over, every single empire, every civilization, every era, for 3,000 years, there were 2 types of people. One type builds the generational wealth. The other type works until they die. And it has nothing to do with how hard you work. So let's take it all the way back to Rome, 27 BC. Inside that empire, you had 2 groups. Group 1, the laborers, the farmers, the soldiers, the craftsmen, the people who actually built Rome with their bare hands. Okay? The Roman Empire at its peak controlled the entire Mediterranean. 60 million people. It was the most powerful civilization the world had ever seen. Again, we had these workers that were actually building Rome with their hands. They laid the roads. They erected buildings. And then group 2, we had the merchants, the traders, the negotiators. They didn't build shit. They didn't grow anything. What they did was move things. Grain from Egypt to Rome, olive oil from Spain to Greece. They connected the supply to the demand. Now, guess which group of those 2 built dynasties that lasted centuries? Unfortunately, it wasn't the laborers. Now, let's make this very specific because the numbers here are ridiculous. A Roman grain farmer, a good one, working land in Sicily, might earn the equivalent to 800 to 1,200 denarii a year. That's enough to survive, maybe. And then let's look at a Roman grain merchant, the negotiator. He was doing the very similar stuff in Sicily. He bought it in Sicily and then sold it in Rome. He could clear 15,000 to 40,000 denarii on a single shipment, one deal, one transaction. The farmer's the one who did all the work. The merchant, on the other hand, made 30 times the money. So the farmer's sitting there thinking, I need to work harder. The merchant is sitting there thinking, I need to find another farmer, another buyer, and we're going to use the same grain. It's a completely different wealth outcome here. So if we just decide to fast forward to Florence, Italy, the 1400s, and this is one of my favorite periods of time, the Medici family. Some of you might know the Medici family from Niccolo Machiavelli, but most people know the Medici name because of the art, Michelangelo, the Renaissance. But here's what most people didn't know. The Medici family, they didn't create anything. They did not paint. They did not sculpt. They didn't invent. They were bankers. They were brokers. They were the ultimate middleman. They connected people who had money with the people who needed money. They facilitated trade between cities, between countries, between empires. They moved money around. They didn't make things. They made deals. And they became the most powerful family in European history. They produced 4 popes, 2 queens of France. They funded the entire Renaissance. Their wealth lasted 300 years. all from one thing: connecting deals. And here's where most of these patterns start to crystallize. Here's where it gets undeniable. The Medici, they didn't own the goods, they didn't build the buildings, they didn't sail the ships. They sat between the parties and they facilitated the exchange. They took a piece of every transaction that moved through their network that they created. Tell me that that sounds familiar. It should. Now, let's extend it a little bit. Let's go to the Ottoman Empire in 1453. It lasted from 1453 to 1922, nearly 500 years of complete dominance across 3 continents. The Ottomans controlled the most valuable trade routes on earth: the Silk Road, the spice route. The wealthiest people were the bazaar merchants, the brokers who controlled the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul. These merchants would buy cinnamon from traders arriving in the East for the equivalent of $2 a pound. Walk 60 feet across the bazaar, sell it to a European buyer for $14 a pound, and they didn't grow it. They did not ship it. They didn't even store it for more than a few hours. It was a $12 profit per pound. Multiply that by thousands of pounds, hundreds of goods every single day. That's not a job. That's a money print.